leap year, 2016. All right, 10-1. Circles. First of all, how do we name a circle? Well, if I was to make this big circle here, what is that thing I just made a dot with called? Okay, it's a special point. That's the center of the circle. Say I call it A. Then this is circle A. You always name it by its center. Here's one thing about circles. They're always similar to each other. They're always going to be the same shape, aren't they? Okay. What is this segment called? Is a radius. An important yet sometimes overlooked fact. All radii in a circle are, what's that mean again? Congruent. You'll find that a lot of things we're going to do in this chapter will not really, you'll have to look at it twice to realize, oh, that's a radius right there. It's the same as that one over there. They gave you the radius, over here is 5. Then you've got some picture drawn with a bunch of lines. Oh, wait a second, that's a radius. That means that part's 5 too. Okay? And it's just something that'll happen a lot. Radius is what? The diameter. Huh? Good. CD is a what? Is also a chord. Now, diameter, we've got radius, we got the center of a circle. Let's go over here so we can stay, so I don't have to zoom out anymore. FE is a chord. How do you think I'd define a chord? It is simply is a segment whose endpoints are on the circle. The reason I underlined on like that is for this reason. when you guys see circle, you guys see that whole thing probably, the inside, the outside, everything. But realize the circle itself is, this is the circle, this outside part. See, a circle by definition is all the points equidistant, and write that down, write the definition of a circle down right here. I'm not going to write it, but you can write it. It's all the points equidistance from a point. The center of the circle, and that's the center. All the points equidistant from a given point. Because if you think about it, aren't all these points equidistant from A? And so what happens is it's like you have this string and you keep walking, and the string keeps you a certain amount away each time, doesn't it? The line you draw with your feet is this what? Is the circle. Sometimes people, you have to kind of make that definition out in your head to kind of, for it to make sense. But if you think about it, if you were to draw a dot everywhere that's equidistant from A, all those dots would combine to look like what? A circle. What we're doing today is pretty simple. We're gonna talk about how to name a circle, what actually the definition of a circle is, to make sure we know what a radius is, that the radius is basically that equidistance. Talk about diameter, and introduce chords. Chords is probably something you haven't heard a whole lot. And that's, the diameter is a chord. It's a special type of chord, I guess you could say, because it has another name, but it's a type of chord because its endpoints are what? On the circle. What are the points on the circle in this picture I have up here? Name them for me. I heard B and then I heard A. Why is A wrong? On the circle means this is the actual circle. A is what kind of, I guess, the axis of what makes the circle. Does that make sense? But it's not actually on this circle, is it? This is the circle. Inside is just the inside of a circle. Outside, does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, so the only ones on the circle are what? B,
D, F, E, C.
C. The only one, what's the point inside the circle? That's the only point we have drawn there that's inside the circle, that we have labeled at least. Does that make sense? We have to be able to know the terms, or when we speak and we define things in the future, when things get a little more complicated, we're really going to struggle. I am just going to, you don't have to write this down, I just want to talk about this. I guess I actually write this down, concentric circles. It's coplanar circles that have the same center. Why do you think they say coplanar?
Because they're on the same plane.
They have to be on the same plane. Isn't this piece of paper we're looking at here a plane in itself that
Yep.
it's drawn on? What they're saying is, you know, you could have the same center, but, you know, be going in and out of this circle. But everything you see drawn on a paper, for the most part, will be, of course, in the same plane, unless they try to give it a three-dimensional look. That's pretty easy, isn't it? All circles are similar. You don't have to write that down. The main thing, this is a definition, so let's write concentric circles down. You don't need to draw the picture. But you see how these circles have the same center? One's just what? Bigger than the other? Then the other thing, two circles are congruent if they have the congruent radii. Oh, I should have put two eyes on my spelling earlier. That is the plural for radius, in case you were wondering. So if two circles have the same radius, then what? They're congruent. All circles are similar. How can circles intersect? Well, here's two examples of 2 points of intersection. You guys see that? Here's an example of what? One. There are examples of none. Okay, any questions on that? Any of that, all that makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. let's write down our definition of circumference and talk about what circumference is. Does anybody remember what circumference is?
Circumference is the area around the circle.
The distance around the circle. Okay? I do have a cheat sheet for drawing circles, no doubt. Basically, if you were standing right here and you walked all the way around the circle, the distance you walked would be the what? Circumference. Capital C is what you use, is equal to pi d. What is pi? It's a special non-terminating, non-repeating decimal. Here's the deal. If they ask you to use 3.14, and hold on, we'll get that in a second. Let's finish this. You guys have all dealt with pi, though. You know that it's a number that you put into your calculator. Agreed? Does anybody? Okay. Or you could write this in terms of the radius, which since the radius is what? 2 times the diameter, right? Or two times the diameter is equal to 2 times the radius. You could write this as 2 pi r. You could use either formula to find the circumference. Let's say they said the diameter was equal to 5. What is the circumference equal to? Well, it would equal what? Pi times what? 5. Now, there are, in essence, 3 possible answers here. And what I mean by that is it depends on, you got to read your directions. This is important because they'll do this type of stuff on end of instruction tests, on ACT tests, which by the time you take an ACT test, unless you do it this year, you probably start getting used to that kind of stuff. But if they said round to the nearest tenth, or round, let's say it said round to the 1,000th. C would equal this. You would figure it up. Then if you saw use 3.14 for pi and round to the 1,000th. And then you might also see directions of leave in terms of pi. Okay? There's really a lot of different answers you can give there. You'll find on a lot of your ACT or end of instructions tests, everybody look up here, don't worry about writing this down. I'll let you take a picture of it. You really, I can screenshot this and put it on Canvas. But they'll sometimes give you this, especially on ones where they don't allow you to use a fancy calculator. Okay? Where they want to make it, if they ask you to use 3.14 for pi, and everybody listen, use 3.14. That's it. So if we did that, I would not use the pi button. I would say 5 times what? 3.14. That's what you do. Your answer, 15.7. Okay? However, this one over here, if they don't ask you to use 3.14, you do not use 3.14. You use the pi button on your calculator, which is going to take it to many more decimal places. This is round to the nearest thousandth, so I would need 2 more, wouldn't I? Here, 5 times, now I got to find my pi button. See it right there? See how it's going to give me a different answer now? 15.708 is your answer over here. Your answer over here, leave in terms of pi, what that means is leave it as pi. Do not use the decimal. So you do all your computations, which is just 5 times pi, right? Your answer here is 5 pi.
How'd you get the first one? That got confused, so they have the same answer as the same one.
Because you used 3.14.
No, I typed in Python. It's weird. 15.70, it's 15.707967.
Right. I rounded to the nearest thousandth.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I got you. I see what you're saying. See, this one here, though, they asked me to use what? So what do I need to put in? 3.14. Do you see how you can have you have 3 different answers here? Just by what? The directions that were given to me. Okay? Sometimes you get the same answer if they said round to the 10th, but I wouldn't trust it. Follow the directions. One thing, they won't say to use the pi button. All they'll say, what you need to assume is you're always using the pi button unless they tell you to use what? Everybody understand that? Because this is a point of confusion lots of times. And if they say leave it in terms of pi, to tell you the truth, that's the easiest one. Once you get used to that, and that's the cleanest one. When you get into higher level math, you won't want to write this as this. You'll just say the circumference is 5 pi. Because that's much easier to deal with. Because you leave it as 5 pi, and then you put it into something else, you do all your computations, then at the end, if you need a decimal, then you use the pi button. But this really, to be honest with you, is the cleanest and easiest way to do it. You will be asked to give answers in both. Everybody understand that? Okay. Right here, you have inscribed. That means the circle's inside of a figure. Circumscribed is when it's outside the figure. Okay? Look here. We've got a problem here where we've got to find the exact circumference. Okay, let's add to this. When they say exact circumference, you leave it in simplest radical terms and pi. That's another thing. So on your notes, I'll write there, or exact. When they say exact, that means we're not doing any rounding. And if pi, think about it like this. If pi is a number that never comes to an end, how can you write it as a decimal and be exact? It's impossible. You can't. You'd be right until the day you die. And you still wouldn't be right, because it goes on forever. Okay? Even if you became immortal, you still could never be right, because it goes on forever. Okay? So when they say exact, they want radicals or, no decimals. That means in terms of pi, because that's the only way you can be exact. Okay? Make sense? But you see here, they wanted you to find the circumference. Well, what did they give you? They only gave you this, but they said this is a right angle. And they said these were congruent. So if this is 9, this is 9, right? Well, the hypotenuse of a 45-45 triangle, or you could just use Pythagorean's theorem, right? You'd find that this is 9 square roots of 2. Well, then what is the circumference? It's 9 square roots of 2 times what? Pi, so your answer is 9 pi square roots of 2. Remember, you could never put anything behind the square root, because then you'll get confused. Is it under the square root, or is it not under the square root? That's why this pi came to the front. Okay? As you can see, your problems aren't that hard. I'm going to give you guys a little time to get started, and you can ask questions. What I will do is it won't be due at the end of the hour. I'll change that on Canvas because we're doing the retake. However, it will be due Monday, and we'll be doing a section Monday. Okay? Your assignment. 10.1, numbers 1 through 6, 9 through 21, 28 through 33, write problems, draw figures, show all steps and work. One thing I wanted to add, a lot of you are saying Canvas isn't working. Realize that you can go on your browser and go to waso.instructure.com and put the same stuff in and access Canvas through your internet browser. It doesn't have to be through the app. The app seems to have been very, very buggy as of late. Okay? You can still do this. Another thing, you can go to I still have my school webpage. The link to my YouTube page is still on there if you need videos. Out of convenience, I'm just copying and pasting the link to Canvas. That's not the only place you can access it. You can go to my YouTube page. Okay? I think my Gmail account is coachstumpsclass@gmail.com. So I mean, I don't really get notifications for that email, so don't send me an email on that. Do it on the school email. Or, send me something through Canvas. But anyway, you can get to that, all that stuff. Because like I said, I keep hearing that that Canvas is acting up. Also realize there's more ways to access it in the app. I know some people have found they can't see the assignment on their calendar, but they can see it if they go to the course. You go to courses and you click on the course, it'll show up there. Another thing to do is to go to your recents. You know how you guys have all your recents? I think with iPhones, can't you just hold the home button down? Is that it? And then all your active apps pop up. Clear that out to help it reset. And then maybe it'll reset and find the stuff again. I think most of the problems have been on iPhones, not as much the Androids. But whichever way, you still should be able to use Safari on an iPhone to go to this and access it. The information is there. Okay?